know how important nutrition is to us here at The Brain Possible. That's why I'm so personally excited today to talk to Charles Barth, or Chuck, a founding member of School of Lunch, Inc. He heads up Slow Food Ventura County, a nonprofit dedicated to supporting local food systems and artisan producers. Charles has served on the CDFA, Certified Farmers Market Advisory Committee, and operates Wildwood Heritage Provisions, sourcing foods directly from farmers and artisans producers in the Southern California region. He has led citizen science projects in schools utilizing continuous glucose monitors, teaching chefs, students, staff, and parents the direct effects of food and lifestyle on blood glucose levels. His mission is to help as many as possible establish a deep-rooted, ancestral-based healthy habits around food. Specifically, he is focused on helping schools and individuals source from their local and regional food systems using their purchasing power to support these vital regenerative markets. I cannot agree with that mission more. We have a lot to talk about, so let's get started. Can you start by talking a little bit about School of Lunch for those that aren't familiar?
Hi, well, School of Lunch is a company we formed in the last 18 months. It's a partnership with Hilary and another guy named Joel Rogers, and we're focused on providing the best school lunches we can. We currently operate out of the Manzanita School, which is a private school, which is a laboratory for us where we've developed over the last 5 years locally sourced school lunch program. And it really is based on, there's a number of principles, but School of Lunch as a company focuses on providing the management of the school lunch system to the private school Manzanita. And then we have consulting where we work with other schools and other interested parties to set up and start their own businesses. And then we have the Lunch Leader Training Academy, which is the indoctrination into ancestral values, where we got a chance to spend time with you. Mm-hmm. And that's the core. Most of the things don't move ahead unless people are clear on what it means to be in touch with ancestral food knowledge and values. And that's really School of Lunch stands at the center of that is ancestral, what I like to call ancestral paternalism, which is we believe you really should exclude the things that are not evolutionary appropriate for food. And then we're targeted primarily at school lunch programs.
Okay, so how has meeting Hilary Boynton influenced your understanding of food and nutrition in all of this?
Oh, well, that's been the real blessing and the reason I'm standing here talking with you today. So I would say the most important thing out of meeting Hilary on nutrition is that we end up having two people who are very concerned on a daily basis about making the best choices within this household. So I feel like I've got a gift in that relationship that many people don't have, which is to have both a male and a female role, or two, partnership inside a house, agreeing on what is nutrition and what is good nutrition and what should go on the plate in front of your family. Mm-hmm. And even when we met at the farmers market, that was obviously a sign that we shared those same values. Ironically, on the same day that Hilary and I met at a farmer's market, our third partner, Joel, was there. And that's how School of Lunch really was formed. We both thought, that Hilary was just somebody special who just flowed with her knowledge and appreciation with everything to do at the farmer's market. And it was, another vendor who had said, oh, you don't know who Hilary is? Oh, you don't know who Chuck is? You guys should meet. Mm-hmm. And so those core values led me, I was more interested in buying fresh foods from farmers markets, but I did not understand really the importance of the ancestral selection. Let's say just nutrient density has become one of my rallying cries. And Hilary, that relationship with Hilary brought me into Weston A. Price Foundation to pay closer attention, to get to meet Sally Fallon, and then to really start to pay attention as to what was being espoused in those things. So understanding organ meats, raw dairy, the omegas, omega-3s and 6s, the appropriate balances, the problems with seed oils,
Mm-hmm.
pretty much scrutiny all across. And then that brought in, I had been already curious about ketogenic diets and ketosis through my own research. And I was wearing a continuous blood glucose monitor. Maybe we'll talk about that. But together, what happened is, I think it gave me a platform to get to know more and to stand stronger in the areas I knew something about, which was really just buying directly from farmers, going to farms and meeting and having relationships with farmers, understanding the way that the farmers market food system worked. That's something I brought to her and all of the purchasing that we now do. But it became inherent then that the best nutrition was going to be at the farmers market. It's where I met Hilary, and that we didn't have to look much further than. And so that, yeah, she brought nutrition. She brought the understanding of nutrition into my life.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's beautiful. I didn't know you met at the farmer's market. That sounds a lot better than where I met my husband, at a bar. um, so what is your why for doing this work? And why do you feel it's your calling?
Wow. Well, right now, I'm 61 as of this year. And so your why kind of evolves a bit. At the core of it, I'm a creative person. I have a history and I'm a drummer and a music person. And I came to Los Angeles, this area, to be doing creative acts and to make pieces of music and to be in bands and to kind of get to entertain people. And I think that, believe it or not, so much of that is inherent in what this calling is. I equate what Hilary is doing and what we're doing is kind of like, really, it's in some ways it's so parallel to entertainment, because we're putting on a show which is like it's almost like a concert or something. There's so many. I'm just going to share this analogy, but then there's the why runs deeper. But the why it comes easy to me is I've been an entertainer and somebody who cared about bringing pleasure to people, and it would be through music. So playing drums, being a part of a band, when that sound comes together, it like resonates and you're rocking, and then the audience responds. So think about like this. I got involved doing dinners around local food system, and we would find a chef and a location, which is a little bit like finding a venue and a band that's going to perform. And then the menu might be the set list, and then the ingredients or the band members or whatever, or that's the song list you're going to play, what you're going to serve on the menu. And then we would bring people together. I would bring people together for these dinners. I ran a Slow Food Ventura County is the nonprofit I run. And that's where the analogy kind of music that I'd already done, and then putting on a food event and having everybody experience that food event, and then walk away going like, God, I can't wait to go back and eat that meal again, or have that experience again, and walk away changed. So I have a why. And then that why, with that experience, we recreate each day, each time we do a meal. You're bringing the ingredients together and you're really delivering something. You're doing a creative act, a very creative act. And this is one of the things I respect about Hilary so much in the kitchen, is each day we have about 85% of what you're going to do. And then they improvise, 5, 10, or 15% to make that meal come out great. And then you serve the people and it's over, and you got to clean up and kind of, you got to do it again every day. And that kind of resilience, that kind of reason, that'll get you out of bed. For me, my why now is knowing that the food system has been taken over by there's a huge inertia that is really causing such a large scale decline in the health of pretty much everybody who's not familiar with really almost like I'd say Weston A. Price paleo, or who doesn't have the understanding of how important food is, that they've been railroaded into what is really an inertia, and how human systems just take us to buy what's advertised, what's in the stores. And you really have to separate yourself from that, and you have to have a different vision. And my why is to make sure that we can at least put these examples in front of kids on a daily basis, that they're going to have healthy food that will get them on to their right track each day. And so my why, every time I go to the farmer's market, it is there in those relationships I have with everyone. I'm buying the best food. I get to know the farmers that do the best practices. I get to see the people that are the most excited. I get to take that food and put it on the shelves, in the refrigeration, manage its delivery, its ordering and stuff. And I am surrounding Hilary with the opportunity to just reach, she and her team, to just reach around them to grab the best food. And no matter what they do, they're going to put this beautiful food in front of kids, and those kids are going to get nutrition, and they're going to have nice, even energy while they're at school. And we're giving them a gift they may not get in some other way. And we're going to be paid for it. You know, it's not like we're going to get wealthy, but there is, every day I wake up, and that is something that's unquestionably a valuable thing to do. And I'm going to eat well in the process. And we're going to build a community in our kitchen of younger chefs now who want to learn these values and principles. And they're going to take that message out as well. So in that one simple focus of caring about what goes on the plate, and with the values, the ancestral values from really, the more we talk, the more it's Weston A. Price values and the work that's been done there. I now have a framework that pretty much all of the things I'm doing, they really answer a why in life so much.
Okay, you've talked a little bit about, and I remember I saw you were wearing the blood glucose monitor, and that's a passion of yours, to study that, and you're watching what's happening to society. And you mentioned children at school and their blood glucose. Can you talk about what's going on there?
Yeah, my father's a 40-year diabetic, type 2 diabetic, and he's now on dialysis lives in an assisted living facility and goes 3 times a week. So he's in his late 80s. And the outcome of not paying attention to what's happening to us, and kind of accepting the current framework that diabetes is an illness, and that you just have to deal with it. And the way you're going to deal with it is through medication, which is going to be insulin. That all of a sudden one day you become diabetic. I just don't believe that at all. So it's a long path, where it's well known through research at this point that people slowly create insulin resistance for themselves. And the primary factor for that is through dietary choices. And it's a responsibility to feed children and to understand how you're going to affect them as a chef, if you're cooking the food for them. And so we honor that. So in studying ketogenic diets, I met a person who sold devices for Dexcom, which is a company that makes continuous blood glucose monitors, and I would say by far the best one. And about 3 years ago, I started wearing one to take the measurements. I was extremely curious about what was happening with your body and blood glucose. And I really didn't understand what it meant to do that or how to control it. I just had some understanding that it probably wasn't a good thing. I didn't want to be diabetic or something. But through understanding about ketogenic diets, and that you were going to control blood glucose spikes, because eating fats, you don't stimulate a glucose response. You just get basically nothing. Proteins have a little bit of a bigger arc, and then they dive down. But carbohydrates, then refined carbohydrates and sugars, are going to send the spike up and down. So when you put a blood glucose monitor on your body, then you end up with a reading that they take every 5 minutes, and it takes a chart, and you're able to see what your patterns are in your body producing blood glucose. So normally a diabetic is going to take a reading right before they eat a meal, so they can know how much they dose. and they'll take 1 to 4 readings a day, because they'll do it before each meal, and then they'll do it before they go to bed. And um, basically, that is like a little snapshot to give you one piece of understanding of what diabetics have had. And the continuous glucose monitor takes, I think it's 255 readings a day. Every 5 minutes it takes a reading. So I got a chance to see what a diabetic, unless they've been prescribed a continuous blood glucose monitor, they don't see it. It's like it's an amazing tool. And anyone, the reason it's so important to understand is you have no idea how many times you might be driving high blood glucose levels into your system each day. So when I got to learn how fruits and dates and everything, I thought that might be really good for me, I was eating a ton of fruits, and I started to see some pretty high spikes in response to blueberries, coconut water, things that seemed good in general. The main thing is I always recovered pretty fast. That when your levels go up, it goes down. But most people are having that experience through food, and they don't go down, because what's happening is they're going to eat something and they're going to get hungry again really quick after they crash, and then they want to take their blood glucose back up because they need energy, and they're going to crash. So most people, you start to understand when you're low on blood glucose, when you then you want to eat again to get it back up. And the foods that most people have at their fingertips, and in most schools for kids, are going to be carbohydrates, pastas, sandwiches, maybe rices. And ironically, not much protein in schools, which is a pretty good response. And they actually don't allow much fats in school food programs. So as I got to understand what was happening with blood glucose, got an idea for a project called Up, Down, and Even. And the idea was you're either going to go up with a spike, you're going to drop after you eat, and then you really want to seek to be even as much as possible. And thought about the idea with Hilary, that wouldn't it be really smart if we knew how our food choices were going to affect the kids? And by wearing the blood glucose monitor, Hilary put it on as well, we started taking a look at how we were affected by food and our eating habits. And what we decided to do is, I talked about something, ancestral paternalism, which this is the Weston A. Price side of things, where really we're not going to bring choices in the school lunch program that would take the kids up on these spikes. So by cutting out the foods that do that, then we're able to move the dietary choices to yield a benefit that's going to provide lower blood glucose levels across the day. And we lead with proteins and fats and super nutritious vegetables and fruits on a daily basis. That's what we lead with on our program. So we actually had we had over 20 people participate at the school at Manzanita School as an outside study. We had teachers and parents and children all have an opportunity to wear a continuous blood glucose monitor.
The children?
We had the children participate as well. The parents would agree to do it. There was nothing that was going to, cause any damage. It was, we, had an informed consent. And I had previously, I had been approved to be a principal investigator on some previous studies, believe it or not, looking at the gut microbiome, and I was still under certification, and worked with the physician to get these glucose monitors prescribed. And we got them on as a group, and we everybody got a chance to watch how food, sleep, alcohol with parents affected their blood glucose, sleep, and then somewhat the school lunches. It wasn't a controlled study, but they got to see how they would look eating the foods at school. And then if they went home and had some sugar afterwards, what happened. So we had a number of people who went through some pretty big changes when they were made aware of what was happening with their blood glucose levels.
That's amazing. What'd you do with that information?
That information is private for us, but we've accrued it and we have permission to share it. as a small study in blogs, and we will get that up on the School of Lunch website as a point of one of the things we do. But the primary thing is it created a framework for us to understand that we were not going to do things to children we would not do to ourselves to drive metabolic issues, which the first one is, accelerated blood glucose levels that's the indicator that's where it shows up first for most people. I mean, it does happen earlier on in other things we could talk about, but there's a lot of research going on that. And that's what I really enjoy understanding, the role of food driving the problems associated with, we have a mismatch. We kind of have a mismatch with what the kids are eating when they're eating food from the recommended in the dietary guidelines. And I feel like we're kind of lucky that we kind of have this superfood, this wonderful opportunity to avoid those problems for the kids, and we honor that. So.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I wish that was the way all schools could be. In my own children's school, for selfish reasons, I wish that was the way it was. So how was the Manzanita School always on board with this? How did they feed the kids before Hilary came on?
Yeah, so Hilary was lured in when she moved to Topanga, and there was a chef who was doing really good food for them, and she enrolled her kids. I mean, I think they were even talking about slaughtering their own animal. They were breaking down fish and doing great things. And as with many school programs, when that person left, there's kind of a regression to the mean, which is they got somebody who was a local caterer, and it was pretty much heat and serve. So it immediately went back to that. And Hilary's kids were in the program, and she confronted the head of the school and said, "You're a nature-based school. It seems like you should, you should be doing more. This food is not in line with what I understand nature to be." So Hilary got on board as a person offering snacks. The school each day provides a snack in the morning around 10 a.m. and then lunch around 12, a little bit after noon. And so Hilary went in and did a snack program that was so nutritious that she basically, by the time she got to Thanksgiving in the fall of the first year she was doing it, she had presented a Thanksgiving feast at like 10 a.m. in the morning, and nobody was hungry for lunch at that point. And got to the end of the year, and she confronted the head of the school and said, kind of like, if you're not, at what point are you going to make a decision where, you could do better with your kids for the whole service? You can see the difference in the foods we're serving. And the guy said, okay. And he basically gave her the keys to the kitchen. And I had met Hilary just about the time she got the keys to the kitchen, and that was the beginning of this journey. So in conjunction with my experience with Slow Food Ventura County and all the sourcing of the from farmers markets, I wanted to mention one other thing. I served before and as meeting Hilary on the California Department of Food and Ag. It's called the Certified Farmers Market Advisory Committee, and I was the public member. So I was that person obsessed with farmers markets, and I had participated with policy, and I'd been to farmers markets all over the state, and I understood a lot of the motivations for why farmers are there and what works, how they make their money in that system, the seasonality, and how each market is different depending on the manager, how they're treated, if they're going to be there, why they're there. So I understood, I had some sourcing information to bring to Hilary when she started. And then also she needed to hire people to have a staff to feed. It was about 100 people at the time, about 80 students and 20 staff. So I immediately we jumped in, and she had to build a set of menus and was trying to figure out how to do this. She went from being the home kitchen to all of a sudden having the kitchen, literally having the keys to the kitchen, and we had to start building the systems up from there. So School of Lunch's work, it understands the point where you get the keys. If you're a person that says you want to do this, and you have you're the person that's willing to do it, you're the champion,
Okay.
and you have somebody inside the school who said they want to do it, then you go. And then you need to see, what can I do in this kitchen? How is everything working? I mean, are there going to be inspections? Um, so it's really unique. Each school is unique in that way, but they
Hmm.
require those things. So Hilary's, that the Manzanita School, it really required, again, I want to highlight that it took the head of the school saying yes, and then his fellow administrator who was going to write the checks and make everything work. The school agreed because Hilary had showed proof of concept through her snacks. They were going to give her a chance.
Hmm.
And when they said yes to that, then we took that seriously and did our best to rise to the occasion. And that's that kind of not quite honeymoon, but it's the dating period, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
to get it going, and by the end of that semester, we had figured quite a few things out, had to hire people, had a few people quit, started to understand, what is the culture of people you need in the kitchen. So that going from a home kitchen to trying to run a business that way,
Hmm.
that's where it was, those things fell into place. So that's what School of Lunch focuses on. We can see those little pieces you have in place now if you want to go in and deal with a school system. And I would say private schools are an easier adaptation, but we're
Yes.
working with public schools as well. And Hilary had many failures through the public school system before a yes came with this one. So she'd already had frustration. So when she knew she had a chance to do it and do it, she wanted to do it right.
Hmm.
Um, and so those circumstances, it was, that's the serendipity, but all of those things went into making the moment. And then each year it's been a resilience that's allowed us to continue to this point, including the adaptions with the dips in COVID, where we could address that. We did when they sent the kids home from school
Hmm.
and they no longer were feeding them. But if you remember, everyone had to convert to online school in March of 2020. And our adaption for that, well, it was 2019, wasn't it? No, it was
No,
2020. Am I kidding?
2020.
Oh my
We'll
gosh, I can't
never
even remember.
forget 2020.
Oh,
The year it really,
like,
I don't know. I
well,
have nothing more to say about that.
we we put together a program. The school, in their tuition, they charge for the healthy lunch. So this is, let me offer this another great reason for taking care with students and doing a really high quality lunch program in a private school, is it becomes a line item. People get
Hmm.
used to the special nature of the food, how beautiful it is.
Hmm.
Um, and then they actually, when they're charging the families for it, they were like, well, what are we going to do? Are we going to refund their money, halfway through the year for half of the food? And they reached to us to said, what can we do? And so we put together a new thing called the Soul Box, which was the School of Lunch,
Hmm.
the lunch box. And we got a list, and most of the people were in kind of clustered in areas of Los Angeles. With our third partner, this is one of the things Joel did extremely well, is to analyze the addresses where everybody lived. We basically became a home delivery service. And we happened to be in talks with a company that did a home meal box delivery service. And we had just piloted a program. So the Manzanita School hired us to deliver meals for their that kids could prepare into their homes each week. And on Fridays, we delivered the meals that would be there for Monday through Friday the following week. So we continued to be able to purchase our foods from farmers markets and the same supply chain. We got
Hmm.
together at the Manzanita School one day a week, and we ordered boxes and we made labels. And then we created a rotation of menus that every 6 weeks we cycled through
Wow.
and put those boxes together. And we sent a team out at about noon on every Friday. And so we had like 7 cars, I think, everybody kind of, delivering on their route each week. And we solved another problem. So if we have anything, you can imagine at this point, if the school had a breakdown and they were going to go back to online school, if they had a massive COVID outbreak, we're actually prepared to pivot and to take our school lunch program to the home meal box delivery so that we don't miss the chance to deliver nutrition to people's homes, and they will always associate that with their school.
Hmm. Well, that was really great that they had you on their team. Um, you guys must have been doing a whole lot of extra work at that point.
It was, I will tell you, it's brainstorming. It's pretty much it's like probably like writing a piece of software, right? Like you've got a week to solve a problem and you want to get a product out. We had a week or less to come up with these menus for these boxes, and we hung out across a couple of days and went to farmers markets, brought all the food in, and imagined these menus. And then by within a 2-day or 3-day period, we'd basically sketched out everything that became the groundwork for it.
Amazing. You guys are incredible. Onto food specifically, what do you say to parents who say, and go back to farmers markets, what do you say to parents who say farmers markets pricing is too expensive?
Yeah. I love this. I couldn't disagree with that statement more. Appreciate you asking that. I don't think people understand how valuable a farmer's market is as a source for food. If you can buy directly from the vendor, from there are so many levels. First of all, I think you get the absolute best nutrition at farmers markets. I find the prices, I shop, I go to Whole Foods, I go to regular grocery stores quite a bit. Most of my time is spent at farmers markets. And a farmers market will, first of all, reflect, are you in a well-to-do area? If the market is set up there, then they're going to charge maybe 50 cents a pound more. And the premium produce is going to be out in the morning. If you're an early shopper, you're getting the very best that they have. You're paying for a premium for the best product that's been brought to you. So you're getting, custom service. As the day goes on, the price might drop a little bit, and they don't want to take their inventory home, from peaches that may be bruising to apples, to especially the greens and things. The later you shop, the more chance you have they'll like give you a little bit of extra. There's tends to be a really giving environment at almost every farmer's market. You're going to get more than what you pay for. They have a price, and they're always usually adding on, almost to a vendor that I've met. They always give you a little bit more than you're supposed to get. And you're buying chemical-free foods. Usually, most of the farmers do not want to be exposed to the sprays. Why they may not be certified organic, they're not going to be wanting to expose themselves to chemicals. That's a high cost, and that's really not a part of what the farmers market business model is. So you're getting somebody who has decided to put more energy into good soils and good caring. So you're not paying for chemicals and glyphosate, which is one of the biggest things, the Monsanto Roundup treatments for those things. These are volatile foods that are going to have a short shelf life. That's why they're coming to the farmers markets. Strawberries, anything that's in season. And your dollars are going into two places, into your local food system. Do you think about it? It's amazing what farmers markets are. There's a parking lot, or there's a park, or wherever people come, and the whole thing comes in like a circus for a day. And it just is like, each week these people have this thing organized, and they deliver this food to you, and you have all of these local vendors in one spot. You want to save 50 cents, you can choose from one local place next to the other and decide, I want to support that farmer, I get along with him. You have choices, and so that freedom of choice, or that choice, is like, that's a bargain to have all of these things brought to you. Even in Kansas City, that way, everybody's coming to the market together, and you can do really good shopping. You're supporting the farmers market itself, the people who've said this is a commitment, so they're going to get a little bit of money off of the sale to that farmer to keep them in business. So they can do it each week. And then that money goes into your local economy, and it encourages another farmer or that family. If you pay a tiny bit more, you get dividends on that, because they're going to be there again for you the next week to bring back and to plant something new and to keep that super nutritious thing there. And I think those systems merit that investment. When you go to the grocery store, and the prices may very well be the same as they are at the farmers market, you're never going to get a discount because something doesn't look the right way, or because you know who the the guy redressing the stand, all the produce and stuff inside the Whole Foods or any of those stores, the price is always going to be the same. And it might be coming from anywhere across the planet, because the important thing is it has to be on the shelf. So you're spending a lot of money on transportation and different things. So the dollars into the local food system are crucial. So those investments come back to you. So I think nutrition's really high value. The opportunity to form a relationship and support a business and have them know that you want that access to it. And really the dollars, oh my gosh, I've gotten the return on every dollar spent at farmers market, many fold. And as the more you buy, the less the price goes,
What other primary objections do you hear about farmers markets, and how do you respond?
Oh gosh, I think mostly people just don't get they're not in the habit of it.
Okay.
Convenience is everything for people when they're buying food, and I totally understand that.
You can have it delivered now.
Yes, but you can also have farmers markets quality food delivered to your house.
I've been ordering, yes, since I came back from the training. I've been ordering meats though, but I still need to get in with my local produce here in Kansas City.
Well, technology is your friend in these things. That's how the super healthy foods, and it's not as clear in vegetables the same way, but on the proteins you mentioned, that's really an important thing. You can now, through COVID, we've gotten so many more farms that are doing deliveries. So I'm not against home meal box delivery services, anything that can create a marketplace for local, regional, and national farmers to get you that food. That's an important piece. Yeah.
So mainly just convenience is what you hear.
Oh, resistance. Yes. Yeah. So I also think a lot of people, well, if you think about it, if you go to the farmer's market, it's so funny. Most people I know are going to end up buying a pastry or a slice of pizza or a burrito because they smell the food, or a cup of coffee, or rotisserie chicken. Because the food is there and it's enticing them. So many farmers markets have all of these vendors that are doing the foods, and they go and they might get a little full from eating that. And then they might buy, oh my gosh, the beets look so beautiful, all those greens. So they buy beauty and they don't necessarily know how to cook it. So being a farmer's market shopper, let's face it, it's like anything else. I threw away a lot of stuff over a lot of time, and we still do, because I buy beauty. I buy for the school, and then it's like, okay, I can take a little bit of this home, but it takes a while to understand how much food you eat or you don't eat. And when you cook, so the primary thing I would say is, if you cook your meals, then you're going to shop it. If you make that commitment, that is our commitment. So at School of Lunch, it's like we cook for the kids, so we know about how much food we have to track that. When you cook at home, you start to get to know how much food you're going to use for a meal. Then you go and you figure it out at a grocery store. If it's a packaged food item, you just put it back in the drawer. And, if it's, rice or hamburger helper or whatever, well, I just used it and it's shelf stable, and it goes back in the store, and then you'll get it out later. With fruits and vegetables and things you buy fresh, your farmer's market impulse when you first start going is you really bring home the bounty, and it's pretty exciting. You're probably going to eat fruits, berries, and you're going to end up, those veg are going to kind of sit there, and you may not have the salad dressing you want that's the right way, or you may have bought that piece of meat, and what am I going to do with a roast and those bones? Oh, I got salami, that's good, but I bought a steak, but I bought pork shoulder, or I got Italian sausage.
You don't know.
So that's kind of what happens, and it really becomes it's like anything, right? You need a little bit of a guide. We have plenty of guides telling us how to do processed food, and you have the chefs going on, you can watch on Food Network all you want and see how they make fancy meals. But a really simple meal with the ingredients you get as a farmer's market tends to be, I think people think things are harder than they are. And it takes a while to understand that you need so little to go with the foods that you buy from the farmer's market, that pretty much is the meal itself. A piece of meat and a little bit of salt seared in a pan. So I
Yeah.
would say resistance would be kind of a lack of understanding, and it's not that habit. So we try to, anybody we become involved with, we just want to show that the habit, open up your fridge, you can see there's your habits, right? So if you want to cook different, you have to shop different. So you have to
Yeah.
kind of change both those things at the same time. So
Yeah.
you got to love where you are with it in the process. And if you have somebody else who buys some foods and goes to the farmer's market, that's the way in to help them that way. But that's the resistance. Those are.
Yeah, I think you nailed it. So, you already touched on why it's so important to find local farmers. What do you mean by supporting regenerative agriculture? For those of us that did not
Yeah.
go to the School of Lunch leadership training.
Yeah, I think we're all, I've got something I'm going to grab right here and show you. Um, it's a moment, it's a moment in time, right? Okay, so this is a new book by Paul Hawkins called Regeneration, um,
Ending the climate crisis in
in
one
one generation,
generation.
which
Wow.
basically means 10 years. So I by no means claim to own regeneration or what it means, but I think um, it's a moment. It's a moment for us, first of all, to understand that everything we do, we are regenerating, on a regular basis. Our cells are regenerating. The planet is regenerating.
Hmm.
Why we might be, striking some blows against the livability for ourselves as a species because there's so many of us, and there's a lot of reasons behind it. But um, I would say in the food system, regenerative is basically where farming has become extractive, and so if you pay attention, there's some catchwords. Primarily organic is the first thing that's going to get people's attention.
Yeah.
Organic primarily, it's obviously an industry at this point, but organic is primarily protects you from some chemical uses across the food system if something actually has a certified organic label. And many certifications are oftentimes people are holding themselves to high standards. um, but regenerative is what's coming because um, it's in practice in a lot of places, but it's hard to find it. Biodynamic farms tend to be regenerative in their commitment to and what is biodynamic farm is really an understanding that on the farm that the way you farm and the way you consume, grow plants and then put the consume the food and then put it back into the ground with your composting and your
Hmm.
nutrients that you need. You want to regenerate the health of the soil because you
Okay.
have to draw nutrition out of it each time you grow a plant or you feed an animal or graze an animal. So biodynamic farming tends to look at the farm as a system, and it's kind of a checklist of making sure that you're instigating regenerative properties in the way you manage the animals moving around, how you keep the resources like the manures from animals. Um, you want to keep those. The nitrogen is really important in there, and you want to compost, and you want to make sure that, and so there's these little tricks that they provide to make sure that your soil biology is the healthiest it can be, because as you know, basically now the term is, if you're really any smart farmer or any farmer who's doing something that's regenerative is growing healthy soil, because healthy soil can produce over and over again, but it
Hmm.
has to be regenerated in order to retain its nutrients and its entire ecosystem. So that is the simplest place to understand. Watching the movie The Biggest Little Farm would be a great way to understand where we are with farming and as a
Hmm.
model where people understand that. The Savory Institute, which is based upon grazing practices that regenerate the soil. Believe it or not, animals are responsible for and large grazing animals are crucial to restoring nutrient health in soils due to their the way they affect the land with um, management intensive grazing practices, which that's Savory Institute, but that's a number of other organizations support that same thing. Biodynamics would include that. And but White Oak Pastures has done a study recently, and they're actually talking about carbon capture. It's kind of the poster child for where things, and Joel Salatin through Polyface Farms, who's been at this for a year, they demonstrate what it is to regenerate your farm with the nutrients that are a part of what a natural ecosystem can do. And I would call out another guy named Mark Shepard with something which is oh my gosh, it's slipping my mind. Mark Shepard's one of the most important examples too. He's in Wisconsin. Oh, I'm going to try to remember that. But there are several examples of people who are showing the efficacy of their farming practices, and these are starting to be imitated more and more, in addition to permaculture principles, which permaculture principles take a look at how do humans live in the place of where they're trying to keep a good environment that honors the way we're going to extract from nature, but then we need to give back. We're not separated from nature in any capacity. We may think we are, and it's to our detriment. So regeneration is to look at natural systems and to participate with them. And can we, in one generation, can we be smart enough to start to switch back? And so that thought, that framework of everything that's going on, right? I understand it in food. If I'm buying from a farmer who's made that commitment to compost and to keep all of their inputs on the farm and don't buy external fertilizers, they can do all that themselves. If they have water, they pretty much can make a system and make planting choices to regenerate that. It's a commitment, but that commitment is out there. And most of the food that's eaten on the planet comes from subsistence farmers, and they are doing those things. That's always been the way we did things. We understood how to manage environments, through hunter-gatherers, to farm or to extract something and then to leave it and allow it to regenerate. With human technology, we need to regenerate faster. And I think those examples are out there. And that's what's going to be really crucial and exciting about every time we make purchases and we support these farmers that way. We're actually, kind of pushing that flywheel. This is really important, even if we're one school. And I will just say one school, we spent $100,000 within the local food system, $113,000 feeding those 90 kids last year and the staff. Our contribution was over $100,000 to the local food system directly from farms and farmers markets. And that flywheel. So that's why I get so excited. Can we get 2? Can we get 3? Can we get 4? Can we get 5? So COVID slowed things down, but our job is to, with the help of people like you spreading this message, School of Lunch wants to help add more people and push that flywheel around. And once it gets going, it becomes self-evident that it's profitable, it's healthy for people. There are customers at farmers markets who buy it. They make more money buying it. They can ship it across the country with the importance on that. So when you love yourself by making a healthy food choice, that best food choice, if you can take a look, you'll see it's coming from the healthiest system that is good for the planet. And you're now a part of a regenerative cycle through just the choices you're making with your food things. So you can start to feel better about yourself that way, better about what you're doing.
So at farmers markets, are they now kind of advertising if they're regenerative farmers? Kind of like well, I know most of the farmers market, you're not going to see an organic label, but
well, you won't see the sticker on it, but in general, that act. So if you think of the fact that a farm is coming to the community and bringing it has to regenerate, it has to generate customers, it has to generate health through the flavor of its food. And the feedback is there, the competition from other farmers who are holding themselves to higher standards. The more that come in. So with Biodynamic and the Biggest Little Farm, I'm seeing a proliferation of people seeking better certifications and more tendency in the hiring of the young kids. The young kids, what do I mean by young kids? It's going to be teenagers, late teenagers to mid-20s to 30s. They understand what's happening, that their planet's basically like they arrived at the party and the ashtrays, it's the morning after the party and the ashtrays are full and somebody threw up in the corner and they got to clean the bar up, right? So they get this in a different way. So
Mm-hmm.
they're proliferating the desire. There was a big there the catchphrases they have is an understanding of, they think like being a vegetarian could be the best thing they could do, or being a vegan. That's the dialogue, that's the vernacular they have to use. But what that means is, it may not be, I don't believe in that those restrictions are appropriate for their food choices. We know that you leaning on one of those ideologies, the terminology really represents like, well, that represents nutrient deficiency. You've cut out nutrition. But you have to recognize is they're looking to do better. They're looking for
Mm-hmm.
people to show them what do they need to do to steward the planet and to eat well for themselves. It's a place where they only have like advertising and it's a different world for them, but they are looking for something good. So one of the most exciting things for school lunch, which I hope we can do it, it may not be my energy that can do it, but we need to be talking to people in those years where they've all of a sudden have an understanding they're responsible for their own food choices, and they need to understand, what does it really mean to feed my body well, and for longevity, maybe for a good healthy life, and to honor the planet in these ways. And so regeneration and regenerative practices have a wide audience that people are looking to explain it and share what it means. It's if being a vegan was the best way to do it and be regenerative, I'd be standing there to do it. But unfortunately, that doesn't regenerate your own body.
Mm-hmm.
So it really boils down to the land practices. And these kids are a hope for us. They're a great hope. So I have optimism with that, where there's an intelligence and an
Mm-hmm.
understanding of complex systems, and they're ready to take us off. So I did
Mm.
that. Hopefully that helps a little bit on the
It helps a
topic
little
of
bit.
regeneration.
It does. I thank you for explaining that a little bit more. I think I get it another few layers deeper, but I definitely appreciate it. And the one place that I have been asking, I've heard of biodynamic wine,
Oh yeah.
right? Same practices, I'm guessing, I'm imagining.
Yeah, biodynamic wine. So dry farming is a term you will have heard,
Mm-hmm.
and many biodynamic farms dry farm. What happens is, by not giving water, you require the root system to reach down further for water
Oh.
as water. So you may have a rainy part of the year, and then the water is going to seep deeper. So biodynamic is often they're dry farmed. Many of the farms that became biodynamic were dry farming or using principles that were encompassed in that.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, yes, biodynamic farms are also going to use, again, it's going to be a closed loop system. They're going to use the fertilizers and manures. They might not eat animals, but they will be grazing animals and capture that manure and
Mm-hmm.
use the manure and compost to feed, and also to derive protective sprays
Mm-hmm.
that they'll put foliars and things that you will have heard about. But biodynamic wine is a great choice, and you should have less of a headache. Possibly. I won't speak to that directly, but yep. So biodynamic wine.
Hmm. Okay, so what tips do you have for sourcing your own food, finding farmers in your specific area, etc.? When I came home from my amazing trip out with you and Hilary at the lunch leaders training, I was excited to get started, and I had met many of your favorite farmers in Southern California. But then I came back to Kansas City, and I was like,
Oh,
well, who are my people here?
yeah.
So
Well,
where do you start?
let's take Kansas City as an example. Like, you knew we have a little bit of, you knew that I grew up there, but I haven't really been in Kansas City except for visits. I have some
Mhm.
family there, and I've had the experience, even last year, to go get that. So to try to encounter that. So let's see. Oh my gosh. So School of Lunch, uh, that's what we do, is try to help people understand exactly how to solve that problem.
Okay.
But there's no magic pill for this. It's pretty practical. It's you have to put the framework on of what exists. I think the easiest thing is to ask yourself, do you know anybody, first of all, who shops at farmers markets, who eats the way that you want to eat, Is there somebody in your community that you've seen that you know is doing that, or that told you they went to a farmer's market? That's your number one
Okay.
recommendation. The second thing would be to simply search farmers markets in your area. And for you in Kansas City, it's seasonal, and you're going to have, I think there's a regular farmers market that occurs each week. Um, so you're going to want to go to the farmers markets and find out. Just go look, see what there is, see if there's anything there. You're looking, you won't have all your answers straight away, but that's the next thing to do, is just take an inventory and find out where they are, see what days of the week they are, and see if one makes sense. Do you know anybody else who would want to go with you, so you're not on your own? Could you make a commitment to do that? Most of them are going to be on Saturdays or Sundays. Saturdays tends to be the day everybody's out shopping. Um, a lot of times they're on Wednesdays, middle of the week sometimes too, in the seasons. And then you also are going to have the opportunity. Some farms are going to sell direct to consumer in your area. That might be more for meats and things. So let's see. And another aspect would be to look at local butcher shops, any kind of butcher shop. And I know in Kansas City, there happens to be a butcher shop that can find, that sells locally grown meats. So you would want to look for local butcher shops that would then have anybody who could tell you they're bringing whole animals in. So that would be a first place. And in your region in Kansas City, we know that that's an agricultural region. And I know that there's a lot of slaughter facilities that actually handle pigs. You have the University of Missouri Columbia, which is in the center of the state. And so universities will also know who are local growers. That's their ag departments might know about really great farming farms who are operating and doing something innovative. And many of them have a really small cadre of people that are focused on what the organic or the regenerative practices are like. Most of the universities are training people for conventional, but and a little bit of a Google search for local meat systems within your zip code is going to yield that. And if you find usually somebody who is a local farmer who's selling at a farm stand, they might be selling eggs. They're going to have chickens. They may be selling their whole chickens as well. Then if they can't slaughter it and sell it themselves, they're going to know another farmer who does. And so once you've gotten into the farmer community of one you like, you can use that to connect yourself to another one. And you kind of have to build your supply chain that way. And this is at a family scale. But I would say this can be really, really kind of a fun thing to do. When you go to a farmer's market, you're going to see somebody else you probably that person knows what they're doing. I would recommend you talk to them and say, hey, where'd you get this? Do you come here? Are there other markets I should go to? What time do you come? Or, who do you think is the best? What have you found that's best? So really other people who've already paved the way for you, who can answer questions and make your job easier. That's the first shot. And sometimes there are also grocery stores that will specialize in having local producers that'll put the names of the farmers up. So I would say if you can actually visit a farm too that's in the area, then you're also the farmers will lead you to other farmers and you can understand your system a bit. Now, that's a lot to ask, I know, but you have to bless yourself with it. So the truth is somebody's going to know more than you do about the system. You certainly can order a box from Farm Fresh to You or from one of the meal services to get yourself started. And that would also likely include stories about farmers in your area. And you would be able to call them and see, or even when you look at a home meal box delivery service, if they have the lists of farms that they buy from, you then are one step closer to being able to assemble your own kind of supply chain. But farmers markets should do the work for you of bringing most of those things together. And then I know Kansas City also had Amish farmers who were there that, maybe they were making jams and different things. So it takes a while to kind of piece it together, and not everything will come from your region. So you're going to need a partner grocery store that has those best things. So Hopefully that helped a little bit, but it's really friendships take you
Yeah.
into that way. Market managers, the farmer's market manager will be so proud of what they're doing. They should be excited to introduce you and say, oh my gosh, do you know about this farmer? Well, this farmer's not here this week, but they'll be back in a couple of weeks.
Hmm.
And you could ask them, have you worked at other farmers markets? How long have you done this? Those people who have the stories, and they will explain what your local food system looks like. That's how you're going to learn about
I'm thinking we need to create a guide.
it. Yeah, yeah.
City by city.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So the other things, we have nonprofit organizations that we reach out to.
Right.
So Hilary and I are both members of, Slow Food. You could reach out to Slow Food. I think there might be a Kansas City chapter. I'm not sure, but for sure there is a Weston A. Price
Hmm.
chapter.
Hmm.
You would be able to reach out to those organizations, email someone, or call and ask them about those sources.
Hmm.
And if you failed at a local level, you could always call to the national level and say, do you have anybody in your region who knows where to buy these things?
Right.
So
Yeah.
those are other
Very good
sources.
sources. Well, what's next for you on your journey of sharing this gift of nutritional knowledge with others?
I'm excited. We're really close to COVID slowed School of Lunch down from getting other schools started. We were
Hmm.
engaged in conversations with public schools and charter schools mostly. Charter
Hmm.
schools have a little bit more control. They can raise funding to maybe build a kitchen
Hmm.
that they can then serve their school and say, we don't want the national school lunch program, which is going to be a very compromised standard American diet, but really the nutrition programs for children that the National School Lunch Program offers, unfortunately, just really tend to be lowball for nutrition.
Yeah.
So we're stirring the pot with several schools, and we're hoping we can get that next one started in the region. We have started. You met a young kid at the Lunch Leader Training Academy
Hmm.
who's begun his program up in Sacramento area, and he's basically doesn't even need us. It's awesome. But he's taken some of the tools and steps we did, and he's developed his own program. So we're so excited to see that. So it's working with other schools to do that and to be able to solve these problems going into those communities and help them see that a school lunch, it's just like the same issues we talked about with you personally shopping that way. You need friends. So School of Lunch really will engage. You can reach out to us. Like, if somebody attends as a Lunch Leader Training Academy attendee and changes their mindset about the importance of Weston A. Price values, we are here, and we hope to offer membership and our community really is the thing. Like, when you dip, reach out to us. We'll send you an email. We can, help us come up with an idea. School of Lunch as a business is going to help other schools and other businesses get launched. And we know you're going to do okay, and you're going to have to come back and do a little bit of refeeding, but we want to keep the wind in those sails. And every school, every person who does this, we've got another piece of the story to add to it. So when, our friend Trevor, who started in Sacramento, he's now going to have the knowledge to tell somebody else how he solved the problem. So as a community, we are generating information to share, and we will always do that through School of Lunch. And then with regenerative practices, we're supporting farmers that are taking the support of the land and their choices, and just regenerating that information to where we have a healthy food system that's going to feed on itself with that knowledge the same way.
That's beautiful. So how are you going to duplicate yourself to be able to do more than one school?
Well, believe it or not, our goal is, even at the Manzanita School, I had already found somebody who shopped at farmers markets for me, but she was hired by a friend. And I'm now looking for the next person to take over my job at shopping at farmers markets. And I've got 2 or 3 candidates. So in 6 months or 3 months, that's it. We have what's unique about us is we really make a commitment to, in shopping and in supply chain. That's the unique thing that doesn't exist. So Hilary's feeding the kids, she knows what to do it. She could go to the farmer's market, but in partnership, if you have somebody responsible for that sourcing, we're happy to share that information and solve those problems in your own community. And some of these are national resources. So we can do that. That's what we'll do.
That's beautiful. Well, I want to hear updates on how this is going. And as soon as you get the next school on board, I want to hear about it. My husband did tell me when I was talking to him about how I would love to see change in my children's school, we were discussing how that's how it works is you start with a school. It's an independent school and they're low-hanging fruit, like you said. And you can get your confidence up and your skill level up and master it. And as you go on, it'll be much easier to take on those public schools.
Yeah.
Well,
I think we choose to influence and make models that are worth imitating.
Yes, exactly. Well, okay. So how can our audience find out more about you and your work?
Oh my gosh, thank you so much for asking. We are at schooloflunch.com. And on the website, there is a contact us. There's the ability to reach out. And that's what I would ask you to do. Send an email if you'd like to speak with us, or if we could provide some general information, or we are happy to jump on a phone if you are considering starting up a program yourself. And as we have time, we will launch more lunch leader training academies. That's one of the other things in the future. But like most people, we're really, a family keeping things going, a contemporary family, makeshift, making it work, getting the kids to school, trying to feed them well. And I will be honest, on a day like today, I look in that lunchbox and I'm not sure what the kids are eating is what I think they should eat, because all of a sudden we're not in control of their lunches. Mom's gone to school to feed healthy lunch for the kids. And what are the kids putting in their own lunchbox? So
yeah,
we may look, we don't have everything figured out.
Yeah.
It takes daily attention.
Yeah. Well, thank you for bringing that up. I mean, for myself and everyone else listening, because these conversations are amazing and so many people are on board with them. But one thing I hear from people who are brave enough to say it is like, I love all of that, but I just, where do I start? Because you can't create all the habits and do all the things at one time. Just start with one thing, one change at a time, and master that.
Yeah, I'll say something really interesting. There's one of my favorite books. It's called Wanting by Luke Burgess. It's right here.
Okay.
I hope it's okay to promote or do a little bit of this.
Oh yeah, I love all the the sources.
It's so important because we function by having models that we can imitate and respect, or that maybe you don't respect.
Wanting.
You look for someone who's making it work in your own community, and see what you can learn from them. And when a second person kind of starts to imitate that, you can get the lessons from them, and then the two of you together, the third person, it creates a whole different momentum. You can think of it like casting a stone. Like bad things can happen if one person throws a stone at someone. It doesn't mean anything, but when that second person throws the stone, the another person gets permission to pile on. That's the bad way. That also works in a good capacity too. When, if we have one school or we're one family that's eating well, and somebody comes over and has a meal with us, and we can share with them how to do just this simple thing, to slow roast something like a chicken, like we talk about. Once you can roast a chicken, you can pretty much make 3 meals out of that thing. If I can give you that skill and then you share it with one other person, it just starts to kind of, in a group together. Then if you get together, like, oh, I did that roasted chicken, I did that next one. You're never underestimate the ability for your individual example to mean something for other people and share it for them. And I think we see people looking for that. They want nutrition to be something that they can do. And it's not that hard. So your work and what you're doing, even by this conversation, everything you're doing is so important in that capacity. So thank you.
Oh, thank you too. I hope you enjoyed our conversation today and that you learned something new. Do you have a question for Charles? Do you have your own story to share about changing the food served in your children's school? We would love to hear from you. Let us know how we can be useful in your journey. Email us at info@thebrainpossible.com. Be sure to subscribe, follow, and share our podcast if that feels true for you. You may also consider visiting our website for more information on stories, therapies, and products that we think that you will love and may support you on your healing journey. As always, thank you for spending your precious time with us at The Brain Possible. See you next week and be well.